welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, where bold minds meet practical moves. Now, listeners, today's conversation is for every entrepreneur or founder who's ever felt like they are the bottleneck in their business. You know the signs: fatigue, decision fatigue, strategy spiral, and then a never ending to do list that somehow leaves you or makes you feel less fulfilled. But what if business success isn't about just pushing harder, but leading from who you actually are? Our guest, Gary Montalvo, he's a leadership and mindset coach with nearly 20 years of experience helping big hearted business owners step out of the chaos and embrace or step into conscious leadership. He's a former Chief Growth Officer at LimeLife by Alcone and also host of the Ownership podcast. And listeners, Gary is known for cutting through noise with real, raw talk, practical tools, and also contagious energy. And well, we're diving deep into how to lead as your authentic self and why most leadership myths are quietly keeping us stuck, and what exactly does it take to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. So let's quickly get into it. So, Gary, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. The honor is all mine. I am a podcast host myself, so I know what it means when you invite somebody into your home and have them sit down and have a chat with me. So with you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary, for the warm words. And let's talk about leadership as a form of self-expression. Because this I believe it's not a very textbook kind of approach to leadership. Now we are talking about different forms of leadership: intuitive leadership, servant leadership, conscious leadership. So for founders who are deep in that survival mode, um, this kind of can sound like a luxury. So, how do you define authentic leadership in a way that's accessible and also actionable?
Yeah. So it's interesting because leadership is something that we talk a lot about as entrepreneurs and when you start your professional journey. But the truth is, we get very little training on leadership in life, growing up and in school and at home. These aren't necessarily things that are talked about in an intentional way. And what starts to happen is we start to learn our leadership lessons by what we're seeing around us, by what we're watching around us, by what we watch other people do. And so, how we start to first model leadership is how other people do it, right? How we saw other people model leadership for us, what we saw on TV, what we saw in the news, what we saw in school, what we saw, wherever you learned leadership. And so it's not really about your authentic self-expression is you're literally miming how you think it should go, right? And so then when you get into starting your business, when you get into starting to lead other people, you're now starting to practice these skills that you learned, but they're not yours. They're not skills that you authentically created. They're not skills that you've authentically said, hey, how do I want to leave others feeling? How do I want to lead myself through challenges? At the end of the day, what is it that I want to accomplish in in the planet, in my time here. Those are not necessarily conversations that a lot of people get to engage in. So my mission is to give people permission to ask themselves those questions and to begin the process of crafting what does your authentic form of leadership look like? What does your authentic self expression of leadership look like? And when you start to ask those questions, well, now you get curious, right? You start to go on a journey. You start to really inquire for yourself and create that. And magic starts to happen when you do that because Authenticity is air, authenticity is freedom, authenticity brings you energy and it gives you passion and it lights you up for the because listen, you know this, starting a business is hard work.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it is.
it's hard work. It takes everything, and it's like and just when you think you have it figured out, it's like, nope, the market's changed, new conditions, a pandemic, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So your authentic leadership is what gets you through those challenges and what gets you through figuring out the roller coaster ride of all of that. If you are just trying to pretend to see what other people are doing, then you're just gonna follow people off a cliff,
Mhm.
because it's not really your plan that you created. You're just doing what other people wanted you to do. So that's really the framework, the come from that I approach leadership. Um, when I'm working with entrepreneurs and leaders.
Yeah. I so much agree with that. Um, Entrepreneurship is really, really hard. Um, do you think, Gary, it's for everyone out there? And this, because this question, it's kind of personally of interest to me because of 1 or 2 years back, I always used to keep asking this question from,
Yeah.
you know, every one of my colleague or ex-colleague, and it's really
Yeah.
different answers.
Yeah, so no, but maybe not for the reason you might think. So no, because not everybody may want to do that, right?
Mm,
Not everybody may want to live with the stress or uncertainty of figuring out, when you're an entrepreneur, you're always chasing the next sale, right? There's always a place in which your bottom line always depends on your next deal. And not everybody's up for that. And not because anything is wrong with them or judgment. It's just not necessarily something that everybody wants to do. But if we're asking, can anybody who wants to do it? Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't be able to be a coach, authentically, who's about empowering people if I didn't believe that everybody has what it takes to make it happen. Now, we have different skill sets, we have different gifts, we have different talents. So for some of you, that might mean different things. For some of you, it might mean you have to get really bring your leadership to learning how to sell and learning how to share your business and learning how to market yourself because maybe you're not comfortable talking about yourself. Maybe, you know, um, something that I still work on, to be honest, is talking about myself for me was like bragging. Like, that was the model that I had growing up, so, learning how to talk about myself, learning how to write a bio, learning how to, like, "This feels like bragging, I don't really like to do it," right? So I've had to learn how to do that. Some of you are gonna have to really learn money and how to transform your money mindsets and your money conversations, right? I work with heart-centered people, and so heart-centered people are often coming from a place of service. They
mm,
just want to help. They want to make an impact. They would be doing what they do for free if they did not have to charge, right? So when it comes to them learning how to set their prices, create their packages, ask for the exchange of monetary value, they're like, "What? Huh? This is weird. I don't," And some of you are gonna have to learn how to really work with other people and include other people. Some of you are loners and you're task oriented, so maybe managing a team is gonna be a real challenge for you. So we all have things to learn in this journey. So I do believe that if you want to do this, you can, but we all have different things to learn. We all have different skills to acquire. We all have different things that stop us. And as long as you bring leadership to those areas, you'll figure it out because leadership is that thing that has you push through, When I'm talking a lot of this is another mistake that people make, entrepreneurs, especially when they're starting. They only think about leadership as it relates to their team or as it relates to managing others. And
Yeah,
my
yeah,
whole thing is like, no, how do you lead yourself? Right? How do you lead yourself? How do you push yourself through the things that are uncomfortable? How do you push yourself through learning the things that you need to learn? How do you push yourself through the hard times and your challenges? That is also leadership. So yeah, I think anybody can do it. It's just we all have a different journey to get there, if that makes sense, Sana.
yeah, that definitely does. And how exactly does, I'll say, because uh, previous week, it's yet to be a released episode on BizBlend, but I was discussing with a guest about the difference between leadership and management,
Mm.
leader and a manager. Personally, I used to believe that a manager is not a leader, but a leader is a manager. So it's like, if you're just managing a team, if you're just there to execute stuff, you manage your people, that's it. But you cannot inspire them. A leader is someone who leads, guides, and inspires their team members. But it kind of challenged my perspective, because a good leader and a good manager is somewhere in the intersection of these two, kind of the Venn diagram. If we see both these aspects at the as Venn diagrams, a good leader and a manager is somewhere at the intersection of both these circles, where they know how to lead and they also know how to get it executed or to execute. And I think this definitely needs a great deal of leading from inward, or
Mhm.
leading yourself first. Because if you do not have any idea about how you lead yourself and how you get yourself to do the tasks that you have created in your mind or in your, let's say, journal, then it kind of becomes a slippery slope for guiding others to get it done as well, or inspiring them to
Yeah,
get it.
100%. And something, one of the reasons I love your podcast and the body of podcast that you and your team are putting together is that you're really taking on a holistic approach to life.
Yeah.
And I think that being a leader requires space for you to reflect and do the work of creating what kind of leader do you want to be? What are the things that are challenging you right now? What do you need in your spirit, in your body to
Mm.
do this type of work, to do the work that you're being tasked to do? And so one of the things that's happening today in the world is that we are so stimulated and we have devices in front of our faces at all times.
Yeah.
And so we're always in reaction. We always have a notification, we always have an alarm, we always have an email, a text, whatever, right? And so we're creating ourselves in ways where there isn't a lot of space. We're always in reaction, we're always stimulated. And so a lot of the conversations that you're leading here are really about creating mindfulness and creating a healthy enough lifestyle that allows you to have the space to go on the inquiry that we're talking about, to
Mm.
ask the questions, the deep questions of, because you're gonna have to undo some of the lessons you've learned about leadership. The mindset that you have can only get you where you are, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
if you want to go to a next level, if you want to build a new company, if you want to expand in some capacity, if you want to move to a different place, all of those things require a new you. It requires a new evolution of who you know yourself to be. And so if you don't have the space to think that through, to sit in the question, right? To just sit in the question with your purpose and ask those questions and wait for the answers, you're just gonna always be shooting off the hip, and that's more management, right? putting out fires, managing the tasks, responding to emergencies. The type of conversation we're having is you step back and you can take you can take a view of the future and say, okay, where do I want my team to be a year, 5 years from now? Where do not just the finances, but where do I want the team? How many leaders do I need to have in place? Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
H how what position do I need to have filled in my company in order to be able to grow? And how can I be freed up to keep doing this thinking, right? How can I be freed up to keep visioning the future of the company and creating the future of what we're building here and creating culture, right? That's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people don't think about. It's like you have to build a culture. You have to not think about how people are cared for in your organization? What's the experience they have when they come in? How do they, how do they feel good about working with you, for you, with you? Those are like that's gold.
That's I if there's some other metal to signify more than gold, maybe platinum, I'm not sure.
Yeah, 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 you're right.
That is so cool because Gary, to be honest, in building healthy mind by Avik as a platform, our journey it all started like 3 years back with Avik, just getting laid out of his job and then doing some, here and there on LinkedIn lives, and then out of nowhere, he started this podcast. Healthy Mind, Healthy Life was our first show, and then I joined. 1.5 years back, very consciously leaving my corporate career and then
Mm,
com- putting myself into this. We are learning so much every day, every month,
yeah,
each year in terms of team building, culture, in terms of even understanding the most important two aspects that you mentioned. Number one is for an entrepreneur and a founder, you're not here to just do the job. You have to be free, you have to be creatively, you have to be mindful
yeah,
to make sure that you are um, at least seeing the vision, and a pathway for that vision to be fruitful and come to its fruition. Because if you're just always busy in putting completion of the tasks and managing everything, it's your company who is running you, you are not running your
yeah,
company.
yeah,
So that's where delegation is so, so important, and the team building aspect is so important. This
yeah,
is something we both are learning. Secondly, you mentioned about the culture. I believe that these fundamental years of building a platform or a company, they are so important because these are the years when you lay the foundation of building a culture, the processes, the people culture,
mm,
uh, mindset of a company, how company has its own mindset and a brain there. I think it's so important, especially in the formative years.
yeah. And I'm so glad you said that because it's something that founders and entrepreneurs don't start thinking about until they already it's almost they don't start thinking about it until it's too late. Because
Hmm.
now you have, yeah, okay, well, now you have 10 people on your team. Oh, I gotta start thinking about culture. But now you're flying the plane while you're building it. And now, you're at a point in the business where everybody's wearing multiple hats. You're at a point in the business where it's you are also in the trenches. When you
Yeah.
start to build that from the beginning, it starts to get in the water from the very get-go. And so now it's not you creating the culture, it's your team creating the culture with you because they got indoctrinated into that culture from the very beginning. Got indoctrinated into what you're building from the very beginning. And so now it's not just you, and that's also something that I think is dangerous because what can happen is that the culture and the vision only lives with one person. And when
Mm.
it only lives with one person, that makes that company very vulnerable. Because if anything happens to that person, if that person leaves, if that person, sells the company, if that person, all of those, like, you want the culture to be in the water. That's something that's being held by everyone together, not just one person. So I love that, and I think it's so, something else that I just you said that really is, this idea that I sorry, I got I something you said really, like, moved me, and I wanted to circle back to it even though it's a different topic, but I was just really moved by, like, the story that you just shared and stare in the story,
Yeah.
because it's a perfect example of authentic leadership,
Mm.
because you guys are clearly led by wanting to make an impact
Yep.
and to wanting to make a difference. And so if you were to start this podcast network with the purpose of getting famous and making money,
No.
you would be making very different decisions,
Yeah.
and you would be leading very differently. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but my point is that I want people to, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is highlighting examples where people get to see other leaders creating authentic businesses that are in the self-expression of their leadership and a self-expression of the difference they want to make in the world. Because a lot of people think that they have to be about the money, or you know m- create, like, you can have both. You can have both. You can have impact and you can have the success. And I think you guys are a perfect example of that. And it's all coming from an organic, um, you know, passion of making a difference, an organic desire to make an impact. So I just think it's so beautiful, and I really acknowledge you again for the work that you guys are doing.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This so much. And um somehow, you know, this entire discussion kind of connects with the name of your podcast as well, because ownership um, is one of the most important, not skill I would say, but
Yeah.
it's a characteristic trait of a leader, whether it's in a workplace or in company or personally as well. Because as a person, uh, it has been really difficult for me sometimes to own my mistakes and the blunders that I did.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it has definitely humbled me.
Yeah.
Has definitely helped me to forgive myself, stop judging myself, and kind of move on, learn from those mistakes, and just going head on ahead. So, Gary, what does ownership really look like in practice to you? I mean, beyond just the targets, the KPIs, or the
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah. So, when I created the ownership game, have I wanted to have a space where people could experience, learn, about personal responsibility. That's how I define ownership. That you are able to take personal responsibility for whatever it is, that you want in your life, whatever it is. And responsibility is one of these words that's a little bit tricky, because similar to leadership, the way that we learn about responsibility is usually like, did you do your homework? Did you take out the garbage? Did you do what your parents told you to do? If you did that, good boy, you're responsible. And if you didn't do that, you're an irresponsible bad, right? So we tend to have this relationship with responsibility, where responsibility is a burden, right? Or where responsibility is something that we are in reaction to, meaning I'm supposed to do this thing. I'm supposed to get the grades. If I don't do this, I'm gonna get in trouble. So it's kind of a victim relationship, right? And victim can be a triggering word for people. But By me saying that, all that I mean is that you are responding to life. You are the effect of some other circumstance. And so, what I'm really out to teach people through the Ownership Game podcast is you have something to say about how life goes,
Mhm.
right? You may not control everything. You can, you don't, right? You cannot control the outcome. You cannot control the circumstances, but you have something to say about it. You have something to say about how you choose to respond, and you have everything to say about how you choose to experience that. And that's where the real power comes in for us as humans. We very often like to give up our responsibility when it comes to our feelings and our thoughts and our experiences. And what I mean by that is that your experience, thoughts, and emotions are often determined by what's happening out here. If if Santa comes on and you say something that upsets me, that I don't like, that I disagree with, well, now I'm impacted, right? Now my experience of this interview, now this just went through, oh, this is the worst interview ever. No one's gonna like this, whatever
Yeah.
story I spin on, right? But when I step into a place of ownership and ownership over my experience, ownership over my thoughts and my everything that's going on inside of my head, well, that thing that you said that perhaps gave me a very human reaction of feeling like, oh my God, Santa doesn't respect me. She doesn't think I'm a good host. Well, if I take an ownership of that, I can say, well, Gary, do you really know that? Do you
Mm.
really know that? Is that really true? Is that just a story that you're in your head right now? And even let's say worst case scenario, let's say that it is true. What can you do about it? Well, I can just focus on being in service. I can
Yeah.
focus on creating a message for that one person that needs to hear this. I can focus on just sharing my heart and being my true authentic passion. And Santa may receive that or not, but then I'm in integrity with myself because I'm following my heart and my path,
Yeah.
right? Or I might just say, "Hey, Santa, I just want to check in with you. Is everything okay? Do you need me to be different? Was this what you expected?" Right? I have a lot of options, right? I
Yeah.
have a lot of options. Those are just two or three that I shared, but I need to be in ownership in order to access those options. If
Exactly.
I'm not in ownership and I'm just reacting, well, now this I would have been upset the whole time, sitting here pretending that we're having a great time. And then when we get off, I'm gonna go, oh my God, Santa was horrible. I'm never gonna share that podcast episode or whatever story you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the ownership is the thing that gives you access to options and to being empowered to choose different opportunities for responding. So I think that ownership for me is like the key that opens up the kingdom. Um and once we're able to get personally responsible, anything is possible. Anything, if it goes back to that example that we shared earlier about can anyone be an entrepreneur? Well,
Mm.
yes, you might have different work to do, but if you get an ownership of it, you will ask those questions, you will discover those lessons, you're gonna have a ton of breakdowns, right? You're gonna have a ton of failure, quote unquote failure, but if you're in ownership, you learn from all those things. You integrate all those failures become your biggest lessons, your biggest teachings, those moments that break through and you never I mean, Sana, I'm willing to bet that your biggest lessons in this journey have come from some oopsie and
Yeah.
and you learned and you're like, okay, new process, new system, new way of being, new something, but did this just cost a breakthrough because we're not doing that again.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's how we
And
learn.
yeah, some of the biggest learnings have come from some of the most surprising, embarrassing
Yeah,
moments from, when I
yeah.
started for the first time. But it kind of felt bad initially, but then I took every single of them as a feedback for me, and
Yeah.
I am working on them. I shouldn't say that I have worked on them. I am working on them.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
continuous learning. It
And
can
this is
never stop.
sorry, this is beautiful what you're just modeling for people. I also want to point this out. So you are modeling perfectly what it's like to be in ownership of something that you are still working on and haven't resolved, right? So when you are in ownership of it, because now what happens is now Sana has an eye for it. So when it shows up again, she can recognize it and go, "Oh, there's that thing that I'm working on that I haven't figured out, but there it is again. What do I do about it right now?" Right? How do I handle that? How do, you know, I'm working on something that I discovered a long time about myself was, oh, I'm judgmental. Right? Like when people didn't, I was one of these people that was super hardworking and super committed. And I was the child of immigrants coming from Dominican Republic to the United States. So my MO was work hard and be the best because you got to prove that you belong here, right? That you can have a seat in the table. And so when people didn't match that view, I kind of judged them. I wasn't a jerk about it, but in my mind, I was like, "Ooh, okay, I'm not sure about you." And so when I first discovered like the practice of mindfulness and being aware, that was one of the things that opened up for me. And so I started to really go on a journey of managing my judgment, being aware of it, because I can't be someone who's committed to empowering people while I'm somebody who's judging people, right? Like I have to constantly be in check of my judgment so that I can be the person that's committed to making the difference that I'm committed to, because I can't do both. And so what that allows me, I mean, I'm not even nowhere near the same. It's like it's not even in the same, but I'm a human being, and human beings have judgments. It's just how the brain works. So when it shows up, I can go, "Ooh, there it is. Okay, stop being a jerk, Gary. Stop being a jerk." And so that I think what you modeled is so beautiful. It's like it's like we're not it's not about perfection. It's leadership is about doing the work and constantly catching yourself when you are operating outside of what you have given yourself, your word to be, the commitment that you've made as a leader. I've made a commitment to be someone who, when I walk in the room, bam, I make a difference just by being in the room. I want everyone who comes in contact with me to feel an expansion in who they are and how they know themselves to be. So whenever I show up, anything other than that, I gotta check myself. I gotta go, oh, Gary, not your best move there. Okay. When I'm in traffic and I want to curse somebody out because they just cut me off, I gotta go, "Oh, Gary, you said everyone, you're gonna make a difference with everybody, not just the ones that know how to drive, right? Cut it out." It keeps you in check, you know? So yeah.
Lovely, lovely. So, Gary, before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also get a hold of your podcast,
Yeah.
what will be the best way?
Yeah, so you can find the podcast on theownershipgame.com. It's everywhere, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the places. So just Google the ownership game or theownershipgame.com and you can access that. I would love, leave me comments, tell me what you think. I would love to hear your opinion. You can also find me on social media, just GaryMontalvo.com. That's my handle everywhere. And the website is GaryMontalvo.com as well.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Gary, this was such a beautiful, such a practical conversation on leadership from a self awareness perspective, and definitely such a great reminder that growth doesn't require becoming someone else. It's becoming more
100%.
you. Yeah.
More you. Yes, a bigger version of you. Yes, exactly. Sana, thank you so much. This was so lovely. You are just lovely. And I'm so, again, I think what you guys are doing is so exciting. And I wish you congratulations and on all the work you're doing. And thank you for bringing me on your show. And I'm happy to be part of your community now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gary. And to all the listeners, thank you to everyone for being a part of BizBlend. And if today's episode hit home, take a moment to reflect. Do a bit of self introspection. Where am I winging it? Or what would it like to own it instead? Until next time, keep blending bold vision with grounded action. And also do refer to the show notes along with this episode to connect with Gary and listen to his podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Until then, this is your host Sana and this is BizBlend. Thank you.